Right, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone, and we mentioned earlier before taking that break that we shall be speaking to the Executive Director for Center for Accountability and the Rule of Law, lawyer Ibrahim Tomiye, and he's there with us online. Barrister Tomiye, good morning and welcome to Wake Up Sierra Leone.
Good morning, Samuel, and thank you very much for having me.
We're interested, for example, in what is happening around the arrest, detention, and restriction on LEJ, the popular rapper, and others who've been arrested. First off, what does the law provide in terms of arrest, detention, and even restriction? His father, his other relatives not having access to him, and he has not has his day in court.
Well, on the law, obviously, the law gives the police the power to investigate, arrest, and detain persons who are suspects. But clearly, the law, as I know it, doesn't allow the police to prevent suspects, and I use the word suspect deliberately because note that this man has not been charged. He's just a suspect, and therefore he is entitled to both family visit as well as visit from his legal representative. From what I have read on social media, including a post by a very respected colleague of mine, Alfred Kamanda, LEJ and others who were arrested together with him have been prevented from getting access to family members and lawyers. And I think that is wrong. It's plain wrong. There can be no justification for depriving suspects of the right to meet with legal representatives and family members. Suspects have rights, and those rights must be respected and guaranteed in democracy. Whilst, again, the police have the power to investigate, arrest, and detain suspects, they have no such power to deprive such aspects and such suspects to their legal representatives. In fact, it is a constitutional provision, clearly, that when you arrest someone, he or she must be immediately told about the reasons for his arrest, and more than that, they must have immediate access to legal representation. If you arrest someone without any cause or probable cause that he or she has committed an offense, it's a violation of that person's rights. You are making it worse if you have not even allowed access to a legal representative by that suspect. So I hope what we're hearing is not true, but as I've said, I trust my colleague who has been reporting on this issue, and it is really bad. It is bad, it is wrong. The police have got to act differently. I mean, this is the 21st century. A lot has been invested in the police. We've talked a lot about the need for the police to remain a professional force. We understand that people go wrong. We understand that people commit crimes, and I'm not suggesting at all that LEJ and others who have been arrested with him have committed any crime, but I'm only saying, even if they have committed or are suspected to have committed a crime, they have certain fundamental protections under our Constitution, and those protections guaranteed by the Constitution respected by the Israeli police. There can be no exception. And the important thing is that in the course of enforcing the law, you cannot be seen to be violating the law. The police didn't create the law. The law created the police. I mean, our Constitution and the Police Act are the instruments that created or create the police force. And if they are acting pursuant to those laws, they must also make sure that they respect the laws fully. You cannot take what the law confers on you and reject those that it confers on citizens. That is just wrong. It's not good policing, I have to say.
There is also a claim that the dreadlocks on LEJ's head has been cut off. Does the police have the power to do so?
Obviously, they don't. And at the moment, I am struggling to believe. I hope it is not true. I genuinely hope and pray that it is not true, because that would be a new law. That would constitute an assault. Really, that's torture. That is plain torture, because I can imagine that the suspect, in this case, LAJ, certainly might have resisted their attempt to cut his hair off. And imagine to subdue him to the point of even cutting his hair off. Again, this is all allegations, I have to say. We don't know the facts. I have not confirmed that. But if it is true, those who did so must be ashamed of themselves. That's plain wrong, and they must be held to account. And I still believe that. I mean, there's this group called, or this unit called Benghazi. I mean, I think it's a unit of OSD personnel. We have to go back, and by the way, we are just doing a paper on how this whole OSD came about from the ISU back in the 70s, the metamorphosed into SSD and now OSD. They have a long history of being used to perpetrate brutality against citizens. This is the 21st century. I keep reminding myself and listeners, we've got to grow, we've got to move on. Citizens have rights, and those rights must be respected. No one, I think the police leadership has the responsibility. The police leadership must ensure that those responsible for any acts of assault, including any torture, and indeed allegation that Leticia was forcefully caught, those persons must be held to account. Otherwise, the leadership of the police has to take responsibility for this.
It is also alleged that those who attempted to visit LAJ, who was in police custody, were also arrested, and the same thing was done to some of them. Some of them had their hair cut off as well. We don't know how true these allegations are, given that our reporters at AYV as well have not been granted the opportunity to see LAJ or all of those who were arrested. But some of them have posted on social media that it is actually true that the police cut off their hair.
Oh, listen, so whether it was one person whose hair was cut off or all of those who were arrested and with LAJ or thereafter, it is wrong. It is wrong, and the same sort of accountability standard should be applied to those who are responsible. Again, I think this is really a matter for the leadership of the police. And I hope the police, the Inspector General of Police or other members of the police are listening to this interview. It's a new law. It's a new law that you arrest a suspect. And instead of making sure that the rights of that suspect are respected, including by giving them access to their lawyers and indeed family members, but also expediting the investigation and perhaps filing charges against them, you have now, it is alleged, resorted to, basically perpetrating acts of violence, dehumanizing them, humiliating them. That's just not policing. That's basic criminality. It is wrong. And again, we say this based on reports that we've had, and again, like you, I have no way of sort of authenticating these reports or allegations. But this is me hoping, given all the efforts that we've made in the last 20 years to introduce reforms in the Sierra Leone police to make sure that the force acts as a force for good, that they are not doing this, that this is just unfounded fears and allegations. But if these are confirmed to be the case, heads must roll and people must face justice. I don't think it is acceptable in this day and age for you to arrest a suspect and the evidence that you may have collected has not been tested by the court of law, but then you go ahead to inflict punishment. Then that undermines the rule of law. Then there's no point to have our court. There's no point to have our judges. You make the entire judicial system useless because you've not transformed yourself into an investigator, into a court, and indeed the institution that inflicts punishment. And in any case, based on the allegations we've had, these are not any forms of punishment that are even approved under our laws. We have sentencing guidelines, we have the sentencing regime. Every law that creates offenses has a sentencing regime. There is no, in fact, our constitution abolishes or prescribes torture, clearly. So if you commit acts that are clearly acts of torture, you are in breach of the Constitution. And that is why there is no law that empowers our correctional service officers or indeed the police to, cut up people's hair or to indeed beat anyone up. It is just unlawful, and therefore those responsible for that illegality must themselves be held to account. It's plain. Right. No one is above the law, not even the police.
Now,
no one is above the law.
Point, time and time again, we see the police, crossing the line, and sometimes citizens make complaints and try to seek redress, but we have a limited response from the police when it comes to this. For instance, these rumors have been ongoing for, let's say, the last 3 days, 3 to 4 days, and we're yet to see a proper response from the Sierra Leone police on what is actually going on. And even when sometimes complaints are made and perhaps they go on to investigate, the police do not usually come out with clear actions which have been taken against police officers who draw the line. So what needs to be done?
So it's interesting that you ask a question, because the Center for Accountability and Rule of Law is currently undertaking a study on really the uneven application of accountability standards in the police. So, in recent times, one of the things that we've observed is that when police officers, commit crimes or engage in acts of brutality against citizens in pursuit of their personal agenda or objectives, you see the sort of accountability mechanism working effectively. You recall that a few months ago, some police officers, or at least one of them, shot and killed someone whilst they were basically feuding or fighting over a piece of land. That police officer was arrested, tried, convicted, and sent to jail. Now, that would have probably been a completely different picture if that police officer had acted on instructions from state officials. Now, that is where the problem sits at the moment. So, yes, the truth is that whether it's the CDID or other mechanisms within the police, we've seen, in fairness to them, we've seen them take actions against police officers, including by suspending them and transferring them and all that. But the real challenge is when police officers take actions or commit crimes on orders of the state or state actors, you see that the accountability mechanism is either ineffective or is slow or they are delayed. So it's disrespectful that citizens are asking for answers and no one is providing answers in respect of these guys who've been arrested. They are citizens for crying out loud. Their family members deserve to know. Members of the public deserve to know. So clearly there is need for the police to understand that they have a responsibility to the people of Sierra Leone. They have a job under the Constitution to ensure law and order. And it is within their right to arrest, detain persons. But when those arrests are carried out and detentions are made, they also have responsibility to keep members of the public updated. And where there are allegations of violations of rights, they cannot be held above the law. They have to be brought to justice, and that's what we demand. We demand that if the allegations are proven to be true, all those responsible should be held to justice, and the leadership of the police must take responsibility, must be primarily held responsible for these allegations that we're hearing. And again, I hope they are not true, because that would be a shame. That would be really, really unfortunate in this day and age.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Ibrahim Tomi. That was Ibrahim Tomi, the Executive Director for Center for Accountability and the Rule of Law, CARL. and he was talking about, he has been talking to us about LAJ and others who were arrested on Sunday on their way to witness the Sierra Leone versus Guinea-Bissau match in Guinea, and others who were also arrested, I think, yesterday and the day before, who tried to visit LAJ in police custody. The allegation against the Sierra Leone police is that they've cut off LAJ's dreadlocks, and they've cut the hair of others who went to see, who tried to see LAJ in prison. We're hoping that the police would come out with a definitive explanation of what is going on. But that's all we have time for with Ibrahim Thomas.